How can you grow faith throughout your whole life? WCF's Faith Launch program is designed to help you answer that huge question as you embark on your own life journey. The answer matters because the true measure of our life is faith, learning to set aside our instincts and to trust God and His Son. You develop this faith in the decisions you make, the relationships you form, and the trials you encounter. Faith Launch gives you a set of strong faith-building tools, connects you with a network of peers and mentors, and helps you reflect on the best faith plan to help guide you through your journey. Faith Launch starts fall 2020 and is aimed at young adults between the ages of 18 and 35. There is no cost to participate, and to better accommodate your schedule, much of the program will be delivered online. The program wraps up with a final retreat to weave together key learnings and send off participants with fresh faith inspiration. To find out more, visit wcfoundation.org/faithlaunch.
Hi, this is Levi. Before we get into this episode, I wanted to take a quick minute to introduce a few of the other podcasts in the WCF podcast network. Tom and Naomi are exploring how we interact in our ecclesial relationships in From the Platform. It's a very in-depth series that is incredibly helpful for understanding and developing compassion and better listening practices. That's From the Platform. Sam Taylor from Cleveland, Ohio, produces weekly devotionals in Pause to Consider. Think Mr. Rogers meets Fireside Chat. I love Sam's humble style and think every episode is fantastic. You can find both of those wherever you get your podcasts or on our website at wcfoundation.org. Now, here's the show.
Welcome back to Full Faith. Today I'm here with Leah Ruhland. Hi Leah, how are you doing?
Good. Nice day out here in Ontario.
Yeah. How are you feeling about summer coming to an end?
I'm really excited. I'm starting a new journey of my life, going to a different school in a different area. So really excited for a new path to start.
Cool. So what are you going to be doing in the fall?
I'm going to paramedic school. So yeah.
That's fantastic. How much of it is going to be online and how much is it going to be in person?
So 2 days a week, I'm going in person to do all my practical type of things. And then the rest of the classes are online.
So that sounds like a good balance. Like a really great vocation, like super practical, lots of people skills. I'm really excited for you. Tell us a bit about yourself. So you're based in Ontario. Whereabouts in Ontario do you live?
So I live in Glenmorris. It's a little town in between Cambridge and Brantford in Ontario. So out in the country. And
tell us a bit more about your family. You have a brother and 2 sisters. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a family of 6. Yeah, originally from California. Moved here when I was young and been here ever since, really. And yeah, just exploring life.
Mm-hmm. And how old are you and all your siblings?
So I'm 21. My brother's older than me, and my 2 sisters are younger than me. Yeah. So my youngest sister is just starting high school this year. In the fall, I'm half moving out. During the week, I'm kind of living in London, Ontario, and then I'll be here on the weekends because I'll still work in the area. So it's worked out well just to be able to keep my job the way that school went. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to figuring that all out. And my other sister's in university, so yeah, we're both going to be doing school online while at home. So it's definitely a different dynamic in our family.
Yeah, and it's I sense that we're all at this point of, even though the pandemic's been going on really for the past 6 months or so, we're kind of pivoting again, going into the fall with this whole back to school. I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like for everyone and how the winter's going to be. So it's a massive time of change for everyone. But I hope we still have enthusiasm for back to school, because I actually really like this time of year. I think September is like a good time for like new resolutions and fresh starts and, you know, new directions. And it's probably easier to start new things than in January. I know like lots of people start like new things in January, don't they? Like with a new year, but actually the new school year is another time that we can like reset and refocus. So you have quite a big CYC at your Ecclesia, don't you? Tell us a bit more about your CYC.
Yeah, so I go to Cambridge CYC, and our CYC, depending on the week, could have around 20 people. Sometimes it's down to 10. It kind of fluctuates based on other gatherings and things that are happening. Our CYC is run almost exclusively by the young people. Mm-hmm. As opposed to having a lot of parents on our committee. We have parent counselors, but our committee is comprised of the young people, which is really interesting because we're able to really look at the needs of our young people and to meet those through the classes that we're holding and the activities that we plan. And a lot of that's due to us being able to every year do surveys asking our young people what they want to do and really trying to cater to that.
And you've kind of come up through the CYC as well, like, and getting more involved in helping run it.
Yeah. So I started CYC when I was in elementary school, but once I got to kind of high school, then I had an opportunity to get on the committee, and I ended up starting to do event planning in our CYC. And so that's kind of what my role has continued to be. And I really enjoy it. I enjoy being able to fill the gaps. Last year, we were able to hold our first elders dinner as well as our first CYC gathering. So those were really exciting events that our CYC enjoyed doing. We put an invite out to everyone that was over 60 in our ecclesia, and it was a dinner held actually at our house, and we put up, I think, like 6 tables with like 6 people at each table. And the young people spent 2 days, so a Friday and a Saturday, cooking for everyone. And it was a fully like served dinner by our young people. And the way that we organized it, we really tried to mix it up between the elders and our CYC so that we had a variety of people sitting at the same table. Mm-hmm. And it was such a success. I mean, some of the older people said, "Can we do this again next month?" Like, it was just so enjoyed by people. We had to cancel ours this year because of our pandemic, unfortunately, but it's definitely like an event that we're wanting to do again because of the connections that we were able to facilitate.
Yeah, and I feel like the older generation love talking about when they were young as well. Like, they have so much wisdom and experience to share, and they absolutely enjoy being with young people and having young people's energy and enthusiasm and hearing what they're doing in their lives. And I think I'd say the same as when I was growing up in my ecclesia in England. Older people had more time for me than like middle-aged people. The middle-aged people are busy and like doing lots of things, and it is those older people who have a bit more time to sit and to listen and to talk that you can develop great relationships and connections with. That sounds like a really great event, and I hope you'll do it again, because it sounds like it's something that can really grow and a great like ecclesial best practice for other ecclesias and CYCs to do as well with their elders too. Yeah,
I would definitely recommend people to try it. I mean, in terms of like purely cost, each CYC member prepared and brought their own dish. And the only thing the CYC like funded was the meat. Everything else was handmade by our CYC. So it really was something that was low cost and high enjoyment. Like there's really little barrier except needing someone to organize it and having the space to host it.
That's a great idea. With CYC this year, how have you adapted during the pandemic with events and activities?
Yeah, so it's been a little bit hard this year. We were just getting into some of our events that people really enjoyed. We hosted car rally that had to get canceled and our elders dinner. And a lot of young people were sad that those things couldn't go on. And so we did transition to Zoom. We did still hold weekly meetings, but we did see attendance go down for that. And it's unfortunate because you don't get the same type of connection and you can't play the same games and have the same intimate conversations with people on these Zoom calls. So we had CYC, but it wasn't the same. Fortunately, at the end of the year in June, we were able to host a CYC barbecue. It was very different, but still enjoyable to people. And I think that was really, really uplifting to a lot of people. As much as, yes, people were spread out in lawn chairs, there was more distancing. Some people were wearing masks, like people who served food had gloves on. Like there were lots of different measures in place that were out of the ordinary for CYC events, but we were still able to do something. And I think as much as CYCs can safely do something, it's really important to try and meet in person because that's where you can really connect with the young people.
Yeah, and I think like friendship is so important. I mean, it's important for everyone. Having connection and relationships is important, but through your teenage years and into your 20s, like friends can really help you through. And so having like good friends, loyal friends, friends who are like on the same journey as you makes all the difference.
Yeah, for sure. Friends are so important. I mean, like I look back on my life, and when I started CYC, I didn't really have a lot of friends. I was going through my school and I felt very alone. And through actually having a job in our CYC, that really empowered me to be able to have purpose. And I think that's one of the benefits of having youth directly involved in running their CYCs, is that they're able to empower themselves, but also to empower other young people to get involved in their own CYCs and in that way in their own ecclesial practices.
We learn so much more by doing than just by listening and like being told something, but actually just getting involved and doing it and practicing and for sure making mistakes, but like having mentors and having people to lead and help us is the way that we can, we develop our skills and develop as people, as individuals and in a group. With your, each year when you've done surveys and thought about what events and topics you want to kind of explore with CYC, what have people been asking for and what have you been talking about?
Every year we get such a response for both practical acts of service and for practical topics that they want to learn about. Our youth are really not that interested in sitting down and doing a Bible character study. The interest is more, we're dealing with this thing. We're dealing with, peer pressure in our life. Like, what's the biblical advice that we can use to fight back against the peer pressure we're feeling, against the attitudes about drug and alcohol use that were, right? All these teen problems, that people are wanting a biblical perspective on those. That's really what we've seen. And we really tried to cater to that because we understand that if they don't get an answer from us and they're not getting it in our ecclesia, where are they going to go for it? And so they are hard topics. I mean, we had a brother give a talk about abortion earlier this year. It was a hard class to listen to, but it was really useful and really beneficial to be able to hear that perspective from someone and to see the biblical advice and to have just more knowledge about the subject that was coming from factual sources.
And it's great that you're creating that culture where there's a safe space to talk about these difficult issues. I mean, that's what we hope to do with our podcast as well. It's so important to have that in CYCs and in people's living rooms and wherever you are with your young people, to have those opportunities. And as you say, like Zoom is limiting in that way. It can be more challenging to create a sense of like intimacy and trust. It's all quite public, isn't it, compared to those like side conversations and even just the togetherness of like sitting in a circle or like sitting together talking about something and listening. Yeah, it is more challenging. But I really like the fact that you were saying like try and be creative and try and keep those connections. I know that you mentioned to me you wanted to talk a little bit about kind of self-esteem and perception of self in young people.
Yeah, for sure. So especially leading up to like what's happened in the pandemic, I've been able to see how some people's perceptions of themselves have changed over the period of months. And one of the things that I noticed, and several of my friends have also noticed, is several of the girls in our CYC have perceptions that are unhealthy. And one of the things that we recently did to help combat and have a break from that, one of my friends, Madeline Robinson, and I put on a girls' camp out. And that event was just time away from everything. It really was just a time to meditate and to think about how to empower people to reach their potential. And we had some good talks through devotions and throughout the day with our food and other activities. And it really, like, what we were really trying to do was just to encourage everyone that they are part of God's plan. They are useful and they all have so much potential. I see so much potential in all of them, right? So to just help them realize their potential and their talents and how that they can use them in their life.
Do you think that there have been challenges because people have been spending more time by themselves and at home?
For sure. And the unfortunate reality is that as people are at home more, they have more time to be on social media.
Yeah. And
a lot of social media is not positive about people's bodies. Between the pictures that people selectively share and just the general things that we're taking in, a lot of them are not empowering. They lead people to feel ashamed that they don't look like that, or they lead them to feel like they're not enough because they don't do enough. And it's just this emptiness. And when you're either, you have the choice to either be alone or to spend time on social media to help fill your loneliness. Those two options, neither of them are really good.
No.
What you really want to do is to have friends that you can call up, or you can go and you can take a walk with, and you can actually talk through what you're thinking. And unfortunately, right now, our youth aren't always doing that, because when you're at that age, it's really hard when you can't drive sometimes to get to different places. It's hard because parents are working, right? And they can't always take their kids. And so this summer, without summer camps and with parents working, often there's a lot of kids that aren't being engaged in very good ways. And it's not to say that they're doing dangerous activities. It just means that their mind isn't working. They're not going out and they're not having fun. It seems like some of them are just stuck a certain place, right? They're not moving as they used to.
Yeah. And they're old enough to look after themselves. So it's not like they need, they're not children. They don't need childcare. So,
for sure.
Lots of teenagers have kind of been left to their own accord, like as long as they're safe and, as long as they're healthy. And as you say, parents are really busy working. It's been a really tough year for everyone anyway. So in many ways, attention has been taken away from young people. The kind of attention, communication, relationships they would normally have. Although, talking about self-esteem and self-perception, of course is like an underlying problem even before the pandemic as well. And of course, social media and technology in many ways has disconnected us from these kind of natural human, like real relationships, which are so important. And I think anyone spending too much time by themselves can just get stuck in their own head. And then that's when negative thoughts can start to creep in, more so than when we're actually with each other. Because, of course, when we're with each other, we tend to build each other up and encourage each other. And it can make all the difference. It can make your day just by spending even an hour with someone.
Yeah, for sure. Sometimes your mind can be the most dangerous place for you to be, because of where you are in a certain place in life. And so sometimes you make the choices to be on social media, even though people aren't being nice, or you make the choice to go somewhere because you're just craving anything that you can grasp for, instead of really cultivating your own self-esteem, your own self-worth, and understanding and empowering yourself to make change, both in your life and in other people's life. And one of the things that unfortunately our CYC has had to cancel, but we really want to get back to, is our outreach efforts that we've done, between us going and volunteering at homeless shelters, collecting for our food bank. Like we try to be out in our community doing things, because that's one way to empower youth and show youth that they can make a difference. And those activities are some of the highest rated things on our surveys, because it's actively working with our hands to do something that is going to make a difference. And that youth empowerment is now a part that's missing during our pandemic. Yeah. Because a lot of those places are closed, or are closed to big groups. So you really want to create those opportunities for youth to be able to empower themselves, to know that they have an ability to make a difference, because that can really impact their mental health.
Yeah, definitely, because they want to contribute. They do have that desire to contribute and care and help. And I too am passionate about outreach, and that I just think there's always a place for everyone. There's a role for everyone with outreach. Like, there's so many skills to bring to the table. It can be anything from food preparation, or doing art and craft activities, or doing yard work, or just sitting and talking to people. And that brings a great sense of gifts, really, that we can offer. I think sometimes we don't even realize what we have to offer. But even knowing the basics of good health and hygiene, and, activities that can make us healthy, even being active, even sharing that kind of knowledge can really, really help people. So we've been talking a bit more about how we perceive ourselves and how young people can perceive themselves and get into negative spirals. But ultimately, how does God perceive us? His view of us is very different from how we can view ourselves.
Yeah, so when you look at the Bible, you look and you see that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. God wants us to use our bodies and to respect our bodies. And there's so many places that talk about our talents that we have and our responsibility to use them. And so you look at 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 11, encourage each other and build each other up. Right? It's a commandment for us to go and work with each other. And how can you build other people up if you yourself are not strong at that point of time? So when you're looking at the Bible and the connection to self-esteem, we're told to esteem others better than ourselves, right? So the focus is on other people, but we can't take care of other people if we're not first taking care of ourselves. It's not a humanistic perspective when you look at good self-esteem. It's not about vanity. When I was looking at the definition of self-esteem, I looked and I went on the Canadian Mental Health Association. And here, I'll just read what they say. Self-esteem is the value that we place in ourselves. It's the feeling that we have about all the things we see ourselves to be. The knowledge that we're lovable, capable, and unique. Good self-esteem means having a healthy view of yourself, having a quiet sense of self-worth, having a positive outlook, feeling satisfied with yourself most of the time, and setting realistic goals. Self-esteem is more than just seeing your good qualities. Being able to see all your qualities and your weaknesses together and accepting them and doing your best with what you have. For example, you may not play tennis well, but that should not stop you from enjoying a game. All of us have positive and negative sides. Let your strength shine and build on your weak points. This will help you mature and grow. And so as we need to have good self-esteem, that growth extends to us, extending that to others. And when we go out and we go to preach and to do good works, that confidence, self-respect, and worthiness that we find in ourselves comes from knowing that God made us beautiful and that He's given us each so much potential through our talents that we have to work with. That's what we get to share with other people through our works. And that's what I'm trying to empower youth to be able to do themselves.
Yeah, totally. It's not coming from a place of pride. It's coming from a place of self-awareness and ultimately God awareness, being aware of really how God has made us and what God's plan is for us and how He's continuing to mold and shape and influence and love and nurture us, and us wanting to be really open to that and open to a life in Jesus where, you know, we are willing to be vulnerable and honest about those weaknesses and those strengths and asking God to work with all of that.
Yeah, it's definitely about seeing that you're valuable both to God and to other people. And so that value in yourself is what empowers you to be able to do work. If you see yourself as worthless, there's no reason for you to go out and do things for other people because you would think, what's the point? If I'm worthless, I'm going to end up doing nothing for no one. And so you have to believe in your own value so that you can go and you can help other people and you can go and you can be part of God's plan.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's talk a bit more about mentoring because, you know, that's obviously a part of CYC as well. So why is mentoring so important?
Well, when you look at research, you find that mentoring increases confidence. It reduces the likelihood of unhealthy behaviors such as self-harm and suicidality and drugs and alcohol use. It also increases the person's grades, and I think most importantly, it helps build empathy in both the mentor and the mentee. And that process, like building empathy, is so important. I think a lot of young people and a lot of people in general are struggling with apathy, especially in the pandemic. We've been through this pandemic for so long, right? And so people think, does it even matter if I wear my mask anymore? And I just want to be done with this. And you lose the empathy over time because you just become conditioned to what you're living in. But it's really important to keep that empathy, especially when you're working with young people, and to understand that they're each in a different point in their time, and no matter what they've done, it's so much better to take an empathetic approach than to ever get angry and upset at them for what has happened, because you can only change the future. You can't go back in time. And so as you work with them, I mean, I've found it really helpful to think about the fact that if they're talking about something, especially if they're telling someone that's older about it, it's probably because they feel bad about it and they've already taken some steps or are looking to take some steps to fix the problem. And so they just really want support a lot of times through that process.
Definitely. And I think also it's like, it shows how we're really all a family together. It's not just about talking about with our families and our parents, like when we have questions and problems and things. We're part of this wider family where we can seek advice and wisdom and as a listening ear from all sorts of people. In my own life, I feel like I've had some great mentors who probably haven't been like old enough to be my mum, if that makes sense, you know, like they're more like 10, 15 years older than me. And that kind of smaller age gap kind of made all the difference. You can have a different relationship with a mentor compared to a family member. And that's really beautiful, especially in a spiritual sense, as, you know, being part of a spiritual family.
Yeah. It's just, it's about that perspective of exactly like who's in that social circle. And you have to be really careful when you're working with youth that you're not being exclusive. Our CYC tries really hard to be inclusive, whether we're looking at people that are 25 or people that are 13. Like we try to really include people in all the games and the other things that we're doing in CYC. And it's not perfect. I think every CYC is going to have cliques. It's going to have best friends. There will be those things in your CYC that you kind of have to work with. But as much as you can, you really want everyone to feel welcome in that environment.
Definitely. And to be able to bring friends along as well, like other friends who've never been to CYC. I mean, it's such a great place to share your faith in that space. Tell us a bit more about your girls' camp out. So how many girls did you have in your camp out and where did you do it?
Yeah, so we had 8 of us because I live out in the country. We literally camped out in our backyard. We had a ton of tents so that we could all distance, and we set up the tents, and we just really wanted to make it relaxing and something that people could just have time to build and relax and talk. A lot of what we were doing was just unstructured social time. We kind of like, we went for a walk, we ate, we had a bonfire, right? Like, and yeah, we had a devotion. Yes, we had like times of prayer. Those elements were there, but we really didn't want to add any like formal classes in because we just like, we wanted it to be a time of connection because there's definitely a lack of that for our youth. And there's definitely a lack of them feeling confident in themselves in some circumstances. And so we just wanted to give opportunities for them to naturally build that.
And eight is a nice size group as well. Like it's small, but you know, not too small. A nice kind of safe space to build trust and not to even form a clique because you're just one group as well. Like, and yeah, I just think it's a really lovely idea to share if anyone is thinking about doing more small group activities, especially with current COVID restrictions. Like small group and being outside is you know, is such a good thing to do, where you can still develop those connections, build those relationships, have time to listen and share fellowship with each other. And it's really beautiful. So how what were the age of the girls at the camp out?
So they were 13 to 15.
Yeah.
So we basically just invited all of our ecclesia and then a couple of other people that live in the area type of thing. So yeah, it was a nice group. I think my only regret is that I was trying to do all the cooking and interact with everyone. And so I was very busy. It got done. It just...
Yeah, it's always tricky, isn't it, with food, because you still want to have really good, you know, nice food when you're together with people. Especially at times like this, I feel like food is the one thing that we can do to like enjoy being with each other. And I think food is such a important part of fellowship. I mean, just like you were saying with your elders meal, it's where, you know, around the table is where we can build connections. It doesn't even obviously have to be around a table. It can be around a campfire. It can be on a picnic rug. It can be eating something while you're walking along. And ultimately, the biggest symbol we have of that connection is through Jesus. When we take the bread and wine every week, that is the ultimate point of fellowship and connection. Let's talk a bit more about resilience. How do you think mentoring can help build resilience?
Well, so mentoring gives a person a built-in connection. And so when they're struggling with someone, it's just another person to talk through something with, and to help them manage whatever difficulty they're going through at that point, to help problem solve. What you really want with mentoring is to help the person weather that struggle and in the end become stronger from it. And that's the whole idea of resilience, right? Mm-hmm. Being able to weather your struggles and have them have a positive impact on you, mm-hmm. Instead of a negative one. Mm. So as young people, resilience is actually something that has to be learned. Resilience is not something that's inborn in a person. So as someone grows up, resilience is something that has to be taught to them, or they don't have it. And part of that is having good examples in your life. And part of that is also knowing yourself and what you need, so that you know the times that you need to take some time to take care of yourself. Some of the things that we've kind of talked about is having the basis, like a good basis of Bible verses, prayer and meditation on the things that you're struggling with. Mm-hmm. And also realizing that like you have connections, people that you can reach out to when you're struggling. Like on my way home from work, I call people. Like when I've had a bad day, I ask people if they can come over and like have tea together or whatever. Like, and when you look at young people and young people's mental health, you realize that a lot of young people are going to struggle with something. Like the World Health Organization estimates that 1 in 6 young people will have a diagnosable mental health disorder during their youth. That's a lot of people. And when you look at statistics across a lifetime, you're looking at 1 in 4. Mm. And so this is something that you really need to cultivate, because if you have a good amount of resilience, you're going to be able to go through tough times and in the end overcome and be able to use the things that you learned during that period to help empower other people.
Yeah, we really need all those things to draw upon when we are feeling exhausted. I like especially what you said about talking to each other, but also prayer. I think personal prayer is really important, but even just praying with one other person can be really, really beneficial, especially when sometimes we don't feel like we want to pray or can pray, and asking others to pray for us and with us, especially after confiding and sharing like difficult things, is so important to continually have that connection back to God and the Lord Jesus. That is the thing that binds us all together.
Yeah, and in with that, like when you're mentoring or even when you're talking to a friend, like a really good question to ask is, have you prayed about this? And a follow-up question, do you want to pray with me about this? Because it can be so powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think especially what you were saying about mentoring, there aren't always answers, and people aren't always searching for an answer from you when they're talking to you, but they just need someone to listen and someone to share with. And ultimately, answers are going to come from God in our lives. Even if those answers take a long time or sometimes they're quick, we need to be seeking God's hand in everything we do. And I think that should empower us all as when we're mentoring people and listening, is that we're not doing it alone. Like, we must remember that we're not alone in that either, in supporting each other. We always have God and the Lord Jesus there to help us through and help us to be better mentors and better listeners. And I was thinking, really, I mean, of course, Jesus is the ultimate mentor. When we were talking about qualities of what makes a good mentor, Jesus had all of them. He was reflecting who his heavenly Father was, the listening and the care and the thoughtfulness and having appropriate words to speak. And sometimes also just being silent, but being there, being present is really important.
Yeah, for sure. When people are going through these periods, like one of the verses that I kind of brought up was Romans 8, verse 28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose, right? So like no matter what you're going through, like know that there is a plan and a purpose through this long term.
If people are thinking that they would like to be a mentor or they're looking for a mentor, what kind of qualities do you think are the most important?
I think it starts with being a good example and really thinking about what you're doing and how it can have an impact on the people around you. And so after that, I mean, it's just about being aware and being able to notice when things might not look right, might be going wrong, when someone looks like they're isolated, be able to pick that out and be open to going up and talking to them and having a conversation. And that's not something that's easy to pick out sometimes. I mean, people feel alone all the time and you can't read people's mind. But when you can pick it out accurately and when you can go up to someone, you can really make their day if they want to talk about that thing that's bothering them. I know that I've had a couple of experiences at Bible school where people have come up to me and been like, so how are you? And that's just like an opening to a conversation about how your life is going and like what you're missing and what you're not seeing. And really that can be such an uplifting conversation when you're able to pick that up. I think it's important as a mentor that you don't set the precedent that you always have an answer. Sometimes it's more about problem solving and just being empathetic about, that's hard. That's a hard thing to deal with. I get where you're struggling. Being real and open and honest to them. And sometimes that includes hard situations about saying something about like, I don't know if you're doing the right thing right now. Have you thought about this? And really getting them to think about their decisions and sometimes guiding them to make a different decision if you think that they've made a mistake and backing that up with biblical evidence when needed.
And from someone who is looking for someone to talk to you, do you have any advice of like kind of opening phrases? You know, you said like, you know, how are you doing or how's it going? But from someone who is seeking help or needing to confide in someone, what kind of things can young people say to potential mentors or someone that they need to reach out to?
I think like always just saying, hey, can we talk is like a great line. If anyone ever says that to me, like that's just like I've opened my eyes and I'm listening because that's a great tagline as like something's not going great. I need to talk about it.
Yeah.
I have never had or never said, no, we can't talk when someone has said that, or if I've ever said that to someone. People are normally pretty open when you ask, can we talk?
Yeah, and you can always set a time for that as well, can't you? So if you can't, if there isn't, you can't listen. Is that the point that they're actually talking to you? Like you can say, let's set a time to talk about this, or let's make some space to talk about this.
Yeah, and even after you have that can we talk conversation, and they tell you what the problem is, and you might give some advice, you might just give support. You should always follow that up with, hey, I'll message you in a couple weeks to check in, right? You should always be checking in after that point. It shouldn't be a one and done type of thing. You really need to follow up with that and see where the problem has gone and if the person's happy with whatever resolution or solution has been found.
How has being involved in your CYC and helping organize things, helping mentor, how's this helped your faith?
I think it's really just given me a purpose. It's really something that I think I feel more needed by people, and I feel like I have more abilities. And it's not that I go out there searching for people to mentor. I actually I wouldn't really call what I do mentoring, although it fits the definition. I just go out there and I make connections with people and we talk about it. It's informal and it's just kind of, it should form naturally. And
yeah, definitely. And we just need more of that. I feel like in our community, as people kind of move on and they can't always fulfill roles and duties and things, we need to be passing skills down to each other. We need to be teaching each other. We need to be learning from each other all the time. And as you say, having that natural relationship where you're just spending a lot of time with each other anyway is how we can cultivate faith and kind of grow faith and encourage each other.
Yeah, and within the CYC, I mean, I think it really should be part of the CYC's leaders' roles to be engaging with the young people, especially the people new to CYC, to ask, how was your week? Just to start building that relationship so that if something comes up, then there will be a trust that's already there based on the previous relationship build.
Yeah, definitely. Of course, at the moment, many of us are not even meeting face-to-face with our ecclesias. We're doing Zoom church. We're doing a lot of social distancing. But in small groups, how do you think older people particularly can be more supportive of younger people and make them feel like they are involved and belong?
I think some of the best conversations I've had with older people are when they invite me over to their homes for dinner. Yeah. I think that's an amazing way to start a connection. We have a sister over here that does a dinner for university students every year, and we go over to her house and she cooks us dinner, and it's an amazing experience to be able to talk with each other and with her and eat food that tastes so good and just feel cared for. And so I think if you're an older person wanting to connect with your youth, invite them over for dinner. That's a great way to start a conversation with them and to learn about their life.
I remember back in London, there was an older sister who didn't come very often on Sundays because she wasn't well and didn't always feel like she could get up and go and come. And just over one holiday period, I wasn't working, and I decided to call her up and have a chat. And I said to her, would she like a visit? Maybe I could just pop around for a cup of tea. So she said that would be great. And I went round and she told me her whole life story. And she had cup of tea and cucumber sandwiches and cake there. I mean, it was amazing. But I said to her, would you like more people to visit? We could come round and do Bible readings. And it then just started small. And then it actually then became a regular ecclesial event. So every other week she would do Bible readings in her home, and then she would actually cook a meal afterwards, and then we'd sit around her table. And it wasn't students so much. There weren't so many students in our ecclesia, but there are a lot of young professionals. I was living in London. We were all working in the city, and we usually come straight from work to her house, read together around God's word, and then eat together. And it felt like there was no generational difference whatsoever in a way. There was just this real point of connection with this older sister and all the young professionals. And I feel like that went on for at least maybe 5 to 7 years. We continued that relationship. We continued that mentoring and still very much needed it. I think that's an important thing to think about. Mentoring never ends. Young people definitely need more help and support. But we all do, and it's something that we can continue to do throughout our lives and continue to give back, and I'm sure you are feeling that too, that in your teens there were people who helped you, and now you're in your 20s and you've now got the opportunity to give back to those that are younger than you.
Yeah, I mean, when I look back, I actually don't see too many mentors when I was in my teens, and I think that there's a variety of reasons for that. I kind of distanced myself. I got disappointed in some of the people that were supposed to be my mentors.
Yeah, I'd say the same about me in my teens too. I think it wasn't until I went to college that I felt like I had more access to those people who really had an impact in like putting me in a good direction. And yeah, I guess also leaving home, or when you go to college, I know not everyone leaves home, but that next stage of your life, kind of also being more open, being, you know, you're a wider set of people that you have access to as you move, you travel. And you too, Leah, I mean, I've traveled a lot around North America. And I suppose that's another takeaway from this conversation. It isn't just about CYC and your own ecclesia, is it? Like, we are part of this amazing network of like a spiritual family, many people all over the country, all over the world. So we mustn't just limit ourselves just to our own ecclesias.
Yeah, I absolutely love traveling. Traveling is like an escape from my life. Take every opportunity I can, every excuse to go traveling, because the best times of my life are when I'm out traveling. I learn so much. I get to interact with so many people that I get to learn from and see and explore different cultures and opinions, and it's great.
Yeah, totally. And even though things are challenging at the moment, being young and being able to travel is the best time to do it, really. You know, while you have freedom, like make the most of it. And make the most of to build opportunities to meet other young people too, from all over the country, from all over the world. The more mixing we do and the more sharing we do, it just becomes such an enriching experience. And I can totally see God at work in all of that.
For sure. And as a CYC, we love to travel. Like Cambridge CYC goes all over, and those road trips are the highlights of our CYC sometimes, because we get to spend hours just talking to each other in the car. And then we get there and we get to meet new people and we get to study together. And it's such a unique experience. And building those relationships are so important.
Yeah, totally. And our life in Jesus is one big long road trip, isn't it? And, you know, I think it's our hope that we're all in this together, supporting each other.